Hello everyone, how are you? We are group 7. Today we're gonna to discuss about critical literacy. Our group members are Zhang Cancan, Tao Ye, Si Tingting, and Ge Shuangling. When we say critical literacy, what would you think about it? So let's see some definitions on Wikipedia. It's defined as ability to take apart various texts in media or writing to find any possible discrimination that the author might have embodied in his or her presentation of the world, since authors have social and political influence. So we can see this chapter is focused on how we think about technology and how we deal with it. Use critical literacy. It includes 4 parts. So the first part is about technology and ideology. When we say ideologies, it's about the systems of ideas, practicals, and social relations that govern what is considered right or wrong, good or bad, and normal or abnormal. So we can see it's very powerful because it can determine people's behavior and what they think about the world. So as a result, we should know the technology's ideology. From this diagram, we can see that constraints and affordances are embodied in digital technologies, right? Because every technology has constraints and affordances. So also every technology has its own ideology. So when we face these things, we need to have a critical stance. As for ideologies in digital technology, we can see that there have 3 ideologies. Digital skeptics think that technology controls people's thoughts and behaviors. But as for digital utopias, they think that people can do whatever they want with technology. So it's very clear that these 2 ideologies are extreme. So there is a third aspect about the digital technology, which is a critical stance. We think that there is a potential for technology to control us. There also the potential we can exercise control over technology. So in the first chapter, we have introduced the concept of mediation, which is the foundation of our approach to digital literacy. So mediation in here, we wanted to say that it's about how we can control by tools that are available to us to take actions. First of all, we needed to introduce about how media can exert control over us. When we say that media can exert control over us, what other ways can you think about how it will control us? Besides its affordance and constraints, have you ever think that why when we want to make a group discussion, the first thing we wanted to do is about to make a WhatsApp group, right? So we can discuss in with it. And this kind of thing has been done almost everyone in the contemporary age. So that's what we call the social conventions that grow up around the technology's use. And besides, there are also some apps that needs to purchase when you want to use it. That's what we call the who can access to them that can exert control over human. And the last one is how easy or difficult that some media for people to use. There are some applications with one button, but also there are some applications such as online video games with so many operational keys that even you need to have some professional knowledge about it. So there are so many ways that media can exert control over us. So we should keep a critical thinking about it. The next I will leave for my other friends.
Okay, it's my turn. There are also at least 4 ways that we humans exert control over the media. The first one has to do with our ability to choose or appropriate the media we use. For example, now we need to find some basis for our research paper. Although the choices are very limited, but we still have many choices, right? We will choose a free open source software rather than a private charge one. The second one is by finding new ways to use them. This way is very easy to understand. In other words, it's about adapting the media to fit our own purposes. For example, Facebook can be used to share personal information with our friends, or it can be adapted to the other sense like mobilize people to protest Facebook's privacy settings and terms of use. The third way is by changing or modifying them. The way is also more suitable for our purposes and is more common in computer games. The fourth way is by mixing two or more tools together. For example, people create remixes and mashups. A mashup is a new web phenomenon that combines two or more web applications using public or private databases into one integrated application and without any restrictions. So there are the 4 ways. We will refer to the 4 ways as hacking because we try to make them more suitable for our own purposes. Okay, when it comes to hacker, what do you think? Cyber criminals, devils, a person of high intelligence? I think cybercriminals who tamper with data must come to your mind first. This view is just one side. Maxine Walk points out that hackers use their knowledge and intelligence to assert their rights and create the possibility for nuisance to enter the world. Hackers are one of the most surprising products of the information age by challenging the old mode of computer science that create a whole new world. For example, in a recent news, a hacker pointed out the shortcomings of Apple's products, and Apple rewarded the hacker with $75,000. It's amazing. Okay, media become ideology when they become resistant to hacking. That is, when the affordance and constraints they embody are represented as just the way things are, rather than as workable and adaptable. Okay, there are 2 ways. The first one is becoming transparent, encouraging us to forget that they are standing between us and reality. For example, when a person is writing, they tend to forget the pen. They think they are writing, but they are actually writing with the pen. For another example, when I'm chatting with my classmate, I easily forget the media. I feel that I am communicating directly with him. The second way technology can defend itself against hackers is by being opaque. When technology becomes opaque, we cannot understand it, and we cannot figure out exactly how it works. These are the point of views of critical literacy to media transparent. The more transparent a mediational means is, the more comfortable and convenient it is for us to use. The second one is too much media transparent is inherently dangerous because it makes us less conscious that what we are experiencing is mediated. It's a critical thinking about media transparent. Okay, is about two kinds of systems. The first one is closed system, like for example, like Apple system. Apple can only use Apple's software and can only download third-party software from the place it provides. A closed system is one that is designed with clear usage, so it does not provide an extension interface to extend the functionality of the software. But open system can. Open systems like Windows provide an extensible interface for installing software to enhance the functionality of the system. Often, open systems are not designed to know how users are using them, so they need to be extensible. We need to pay more attention to the closed system. The more closed a system is, the more opaque the technologies within it become. Of course, many media are not transparent because of the protection of property rights. On the other hand, completely closed systems discourage innovation. Open systems are completely open, make it difficult to maintain quality, and are more vulnerable to abusive practices. My point of view is open system is the trend for some applications in the future. Okay, that's all about two kinds of systems. Okay, next one is conclusion. We need to know it is important to remember that what we mean by transparency is not that we can see inside of something, but that we see through it and forget that it's there. Okay, that's all about my part.
Part 3: Ideology and the Technology of Language. When it comes to developing critical literacy with digital technology, a good place to start is by practicing it first with the analog technology of language. Language is a medium, but we are rarely aware of language as a mediator of meaning. Instead, we tend to think that we are communicating with people directly. Thus, certain ways of constructing reality with language come to be taken for granted by us. Furthermore, most of us are just as unaware of how language actually works to create meaning and promote ideology. So in this part, we'll mainly focus on two aspects: how language works to create meaning and promote ideology. Okay, the first aspect, how language works to create meaning. The first keyword is agenda. Anytime a person uses a semiotic system like language to make meaning, they always have an agenda. We produce text in order to get things done, whether achieving some kind of material gain, fulfilling an obligation to someone, or making someone do something or believe something. We judge how successful our texts are by how well they help us to realize our agendas. The first question to ask whenever we encounter text is, what's the agenda? The second question is, who produced the text? Sometimes it's even difficult to find out who produced the text in the first place. The text may come from an institution or a group like a company or a government, may come from an individual, or the source of the text may be a complete mystery to us. So we can never really critically assess a text unless we have some ideas about the 2 points, agenda and who produced the text. The second aspect, how language works to promote ideology. We must know 2 functions of the language, ideational function and interpersonal function. Before we know ideational function, we must know some basic ideas about the language. Language is never objective. That is to say, the reality that text depicts is never true reality. It is always a matter of selection, a particular version of reality. We depict reality by using various words that represent things and actions. Language is basically a filter, a system of inclusion and exclusion. That means if we choose to include or emphasize one thing in our version of reality, that means we are choosing to exclude or downplay something else. Here is the example. If we refer World Wide Web to an information highway, that means we emphasize the role of web in the exchange of information, and we de-emphasize the role of web plays in social interaction or entertainment. The version of reality that we construct with our language are not just a matter of words we choose, but also how we choose to connect up these words to form prepositions, statements about the word and how it works. The function of language in forming prepositions is called the ideational function because it allows us to express our ideas about reality. So that's the main points about ideational function. A number of linguistic tricks that people use to make their prepositions more natural seeming and more difficult to question. One of the most powerful is called presupposition. Presupposition is when, rather than asserting something directly, writers or speakers treat certain prepositions as given. Here is the example. Here is the sentence produced by Steve Jobs. It is the best browsing experience you've ever had. He was making several assumptions. First, that the browsing experience you have had in the past is somehow defective compared to the one you will have with his product. That's an assumption he made about much information about your particular past experience with browsing. Second, that what makes the browsing experience positive is the technology that you use rather than the content that you access. So that's the several assumptions. Interpersonal function, how they represent relationships between people. Here are several ways: through adopting different genres or styles of speaking and writing, through the kind of languages the writer uses, or through adopting certain kinds of identities. First, different kinds of texts create different kinds of relationships between their producers and people who read them. Some kind of texts make it easy for the reader to disagree with or debate the writer, whereas others make it almost impossible. For example, a legal notice puts a reader very differently from an online adverse column. Furthermore, writers can create relationships with readers through the kind of language they use. They can use informal language or formal language that create different senses of closeness or distance. For example, Steve Jobs created a sense of closeness with the reader because he used you. Finally, authors of texts create relationships with their readers by adopting certain kinds of identities, projecting certain kinds of identities onto the reader, and portray what they are doing in a certain way. For example, you might be more receptive to an opinion about a new product if it appears in the context of a news story or a customer review.
Well, it's my turn. Part 4. Part 4 is about ideology and digital technology. Here, I want to emphasize the definition of digital technology in the first slide. We have mentioned before about ideology's definition. So here, the definition digital technology, that's what I want to say. Digital technology, the branch of scientific or engineering knowledge that deals with the creation and practical use of digital or computerized devices, methods, or systems. The application of this knowledge for practical ends as in digital communication and social media. Next slide. Media are never objective. They always promote a particular version of reality through the choices they require users to make, choices which, in the case of digital media, are often expressed in terms of drop-down menus or preference settings. The main difference between digital technologies and earlier analog technologies is that the nature of the choices they make available to us. Next slide is about fixed and locked-in system of inclusion and exclusion. Locked-in system of inclusion and exclusion affect the development later technologies like wizards, templates, themes instruct users not just about design choices, but about the kinds of social contexts in which the technology is meant to be used, the kinds of social actions it is meant to be used to perform. Another way system of inclusion and exclusion can limit our perception of the world through the various ways technology filters the data that is available to us, like text. Technologies create a particular relationship between users and producers of technologies and between users and other users. Next slide is about nature and purpose of these social relationships. We all know that technologies promote and not always obvious the straightforward, so we must learn how to use technological tools, then master the range of the choice they present, and being indoctrinated into the social practice that have come to be technologized around these tools. In the end, they promote a particular version of reality, making some kinds of social relationships more possible and other less possible. The next slide is protecting children online. We all know that with the development of mass media and websites, the online games are more popular among children. So we must have some actions to protect children's safety, online safety. Here, MMOGs are the good examples. MMOG are digital games that you can play with a large number of the players on the internet. The first game is Pop Tropic. Pop Tropic is produced by Pearson Education. Second, Motion Monsters is created by Mount Candy. Club Penguin is the last one, is designed by Disney. All of these games are aimed at young children, have information for parents prominently linked from their home pages. Online safety for players is addressed in all three games. Is clearly perceived as an important value by the game designer. So, the choice of the communication tools here reflects the subtly different ideology about online safety for children, which aims to promote safety by monitoring interaction rather than restricting it. All three of the games described here are clearly committed to the value of online safety for children and take steps to promote community norms that are consistent with this value. But the approaches taken reflect different ideologies about the level of control that is necessary in order to achieve the goal of safety. That's all.